about mental health. And so we'll love God with our strengths, and we'll love God with our bodies, and we'll love God with our souls. We don't spend enough time talking about how we can love God with our minds. I want to make a statement to you today, and some of you, it just may make you feel uncomfortable, but just, I'm going to tell you like I tell my students, you ain't got to own it, just rent it. What if I told you today that prioritizing your mental health was an act of worship? More than lifting in your hands, more than shouting, more than dancing, more than paying your tithes. What if I told you that making sure your mind was right is an act of worship? Because I cannot love God with all of my mind if I'm not doing what it takes to keep my mind together.
They do. Good morning again. Welcome to our Family and Friends Day. This morning we are doing the flip the script on mental health this morning. I have some amazing individuals, mental health professionals, that we're going to have a conversation. Thank you, Pastor T, for allowing us to have the conversation. What we want to do this morning is have a conversation and share the resources with the opportunity to allow you to ask questions. Towards the end, we're going to talk about mental health in the aspect of all areas of life, but specifically in the African American community. We don't talk about it a lot in the African American community for whatever reason, but we want to open up the doors to allow you to gain some understanding and some insight from African American therapists, as well as just kind of understand how the mental health realm works. We all have different backgrounds, we all see clients, we all are therapists, but we all have kind of different focuses when it comes to the clientele that we work with. Miss Shanika coming back? Okay, she's coming back. Oh, okay. So what I want to go, while we're waiting on Miss Shanika to come back, I'm going to allow our therapists to introduce themselves. So Jakay, would you go first? Tell us your background and your reason why you are doing therapy. Oh, okay.
All right, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a long time. You think I know how to use a microphone, right? So my name is Givelify. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been doing therapy about 4 years. I've been in the mental health field for about 9 or 10. So I currently work for the military, but also I run a private practice at night to where I see members of our community mostly to help them, get better and understand their own mental health.
Ms. Tiffany.
Good morning. My name is Tiffania Reed Johnson, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker as well. My areas of specialty are trauma, anxiety, and depression. I'm the owner of Remade Counseling and Consulting. Right now, my business is primarily 100% telehealth, so I really hope that we are able to have some conversations today about access and the importance of everyone seeking mental health treatment.
Okay. Good morning again. My name is Dr. Toy, and my area of concentration is marriage and family therapy. So over the past year and a half, I've been studying marriage and family therapy, and over this past year, I've been seeing clients. So I focus on the systematic of things in families. You don't necessarily have to be married to come and see me. I work with individuals, families, and we look at things from a different aspect. So while in mental health, we're looking at diagnosis, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all those things that kind of come along with it. I'm looking at those things, but I'm also looking at what is the cause of it. We get down to the nitty gritty when we are looking at the marriage and family area of things and the systematic of things. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. Miss Shanika went downstairs to work with the kids. Okay, so Tiffany and Jakay, am I saying your name right? Yes. Okay. And Jakay we're gonna get the conversation started. So this question is for Tiffany. What are the unique mental health challenges that Black individuals face, and how do they differ from those of other racial and ethnic groups?
I think it's really interesting this morning that we're here on a Sunday morning. And so I think we as African Americans are still overcoming stigma. I think a lot of times in other ethnic groups, mental health care has been normalized, and we're really still working on this. I love those t-shirts that said you can have Jesus and a therapist too. Yeah. And I love the fact that Pastor T this morning said this is a form of worship. And so what I've learned over the years is that if you're not healthy, you can't help. find that those past traumas that you have that are unresolved, they will present themselves. Sometimes they will show up here in the house of the Lord in how you treat the people that you're sitting next to. So I think it's really important that we continue to normalize mental health care. Now, I can say this. I have seen a shift in our younger generation, that they are more open to mental health. And I think that's because we're doing an excellent job in the schools in providing that first link to care.
So you just mentioned that you said that you've seen a shift. What do you think brought about the shift? What is bringing more young people to the conversation, to wanting to come out and speak with a therapist?
Well, I know when I was in school many years ago, there was no, I mean, you would go to the counselor's office and they would call your mom, and then your mom would get on the phone and have some courageous words with you. But now they're actually providing some treatment in the school systems where they are getting they're having conversations about how to manage your anger, how to express. I think there are conversations around bullying. So I think acknowledging that these issues are real for our children is really important.
So in these conversations, are you seeing that more parents don't want to get involved, or is it just the child and the therapist?
I can't speak to that because
Okay.
I don't work in the school system, and I work primarily with young adults and older adults. So can you speak to that?
So I was an in-fact counselor at Northeast for a while. Now, I work with children. I'll tell you my population that I normally work with. Normally I work with black men, white women who date black men, and black males, teenagers, right? So I don't go past under the age of 8 because it's very difficult, right? But what I've seen is the children want the help, but the parents are kind of like, you don't need help. You just need to stay off of social media, right? And you need to pick better friends. It isn't until the kid attempts suicide or they find letters in book bags that the parents get involved. So I think what the school actually does, is, to pick up what she said, is it's someone there to talk to the kids about their mental health. And once they turn 16, they no longer need parents' permission to seek mental health, right? And that is, it's a gift and it's a curse, right? But it's one of those things to where about 16 is when the kids really start to have issues. So they have a right in their own say so whether they need help or not. But the shift that I've seen is when the kid finally breaks down and then the parents don't know what to do, right? And this speaks for my son as well, right? Because I have a son that struggles as well. So I look at it different than his mom does. But one of the biggest things is that I understand mental health, right? So the big thing that we have to do, and the shift that I've seen, is if your kid is telling you that they are feeling something, they can't really explain it, right? We adults, and we can barely explain it. So when the kids start saying things, more parents are listening because they're getting calls from the schools, right? And social media has made it easy for them to say, hey, this person or this celebrity went and got help, it's okay for me too.
Just one more question, and I'm gonna move on to the next question. So with the psychoeducation portion of it, of sharing the knowledge and the information with the parents, do you feel that there's some resistance in that when you're trying to educate the parents on what that is and what that looks like?
When it comes to the black community, there is. And the reason why is because you have I'll say a split in half. You have this group of people who believe that it ain't nothing wrong with this kid, he's just whatever, right? Then you have the other half that believes that, like, as long as we take them to church, they'll be fine, right? And then it's kind of like, well, let's try to figure out a happy medium to it, right? And God and therapy works good together, right? Because not all pastors are meant to talk about mental health, right? God called them for one thing, right? And it's a group of professionals for other. We go to the doctor and we trust that the doctor says something, and we'll run. If he said you got diabetes, we'll run down there and we'll go get all this medicine, right? But if I tell you that, hey, your son he's kind of struggling with his mental health and we really need to work on it, you tell me that he just has bad friends or that he's listening to the wrong music. Well, when are we going to step up and say, okay, let me at least try to understand what my son is going through? Because what you're doing is you're pushing them right back out there to the streets, right? Or back to unhealthy coping skills, right? Which is the bad music, the social media, and the drugs.
Amen. This question is for you, Jacque. How has historical trauma, such as slavery, systemic racism, and discrimination, impacted the mental health of Black communities? And what can be done to address these long-lasting effects?
So the trauma, so I'm in my 30s, right? So you have to imagine that my mom she's in her 50s, and she doesn't like to go to the doctor, right? But she doesn't like to go to the doctor because of the way she was treated. So when she goes and talks to her mom about the things that's going on, her mom has, if my grandma was still alive, she would be in her 70s. So we have this history of who is really going to listen to me when I say something's wrong. And then when it comes to mental illness, you can't see it, right? If she was walking around with a missing arm, right, everybody knows that she doesn't have an arm. But if somebody's walking around with depression and anxiety, you can't see it. So how many times have we went to the doctor, the regular doctor? We did not even talk about mental health. We go to the regular doctor, we complain about this issue, and because of the color of our skin, right, they think that we can handle more pain, right, so we're just joking. And then the other part is like, it's okay, just do this, just do that. And we're like, well, what is this and what is that? You're not telling me how to fix the issue. Tylenol doesn't fix everything, right? And it doesn't fix everything. So when we think about that trauma, I tell my mom, hey, this is what's going on. I think when I was in school, what I would call it would be anxiety, right? But back then, it's my mom, quit being scared, right? You need to man up. So here's the issue with that. The issue with that is, well, all of us, I'm from Gary, Indiana, so everybody in Gary, Indiana is trying to man up, right? So we fist fighting and shooting guns. That's what ends up happening, right? So it goes all the way down and it trickles. So if you never seek or sought mental health, and your parents never sought it, and their parents never sought it, and when your kids come to you, what is your response? Right? We have the same response, and that's this trickle-down effect of mental health is important, but not for my kid. It's that kid over there who has the issue, right? So, and it kind of goes down. So systemically, right, the biggest problem that I see is your kid not being able to explain how they feel, and them walking into the office, and most of the people that walk into the office and speaking with don't look like them.
That's deep. So let's stay there for a minute. So our kids are coming in, they're wanting help, but when they go into the counselor's office, they don't look like us. So there's some resistance there, because if I open up to this person, then as far as what they know, and my daughter mentioned this as we were coming here to church, about how she wasn't going to go downstairs and talk to no counselor, because when you tell people stuff, then that's when DCS gets involved and all these negative things. So I'm like, where did you get that from, Genesis? But this is stuff that's been talked about. So it's kind of like, well, we're not going to say anything because we don't want to share whatever may be going on or how we're feeling, because then you all may be looking at us a certain type of way, and we don't want to get anybody in trouble or any type of thing if somebody was to share something that they shouldn't have. So how do we, as professionals and just individuals, make it the opportunity available where it's comfortable that kids can share, their thoughts and what's going on without having the fear of being taken away from their parents or being viewed a certain type of way?
So I think that sometimes it's not really us that needs to fix us,
okay,
and the way we speak. It's the people who receive us, right?
Okay.
Because
okay.
when you think about it, right, your sassy daughter is your sassy daughter, right? She's going to be sassy no matter who she talks to,
Right.
right? So when she goes in and she's trying to explain what's wrong with her to this person who's already, we're talking about school now. So everybody's kids ain't perfect, and all y'all kids ain't angel when they go to school. Right? So your kid is causing drama inside of school all day, right? And then they have an issue, and they're going to talk to the same person that they've been cussing out, right? And now it's this resistance there. So it's not your kid who's doing it, but it's another kid who's has a similar sass that talks to this teacher, this counselor, and then your daughter goes in, your son goes in, and try to have a conversation. The judgment on what sass looks like has already been in this person's mind, So and this is when I was working for the school, I was like, maybe it was me, maybe I was just looking at it wrong, but it was like, no, right? So they already expect us to act a certain way. So sometimes we have a culture, and it's hard for other people to believe, but black people have a culture. So when our kids go to school and they're trying to explain themselves, all they can see is the people who receive them, right? All they can see is what they've seen on the videos, what they've seen on social media, right? So that's what they try to understand our culture from, is what's on TV. So the big thing that I would say is, when our kids are going to get help, is realizing that and teaching them the way you act is the way people receive you. Right? You can't, and it's like calling wolf. You can't cuss out the counselor and then go back and tell them that you have an issue. Right? It's the same way we tell our kids, hey, if they smack you, right, hit them back. Go tell the teacher. Go do all this other stuff. So it's the same way. If you going in there, and I've worked in school, and I've seen military children and everybody else's kids in there, and I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, sometimes it's not the parents. Y'all are doing your job, and your kid just going to school, and they acting a fool. But sometimes they're acting a fool because they need help. So sometimes punishment and whoopings and all this other stuff is not always what they need. So when parents call me and they say, hey, my kid needs help, it's like, well, the school called, and as I'm talking to the kid, they say the same thing. I'm not going to talk to the counselor because she doesn't understand me, or she's a white lady. That's mostly what I get. She's a white lady, and they try to, some of them try too hard to sympathize with what we're going through. And obviously, it doesn't work. The first thing they say is, it must be at home, right? So now they thinking that we drug addicts and we just acting crazy at home. And I really think that you have to go and you have to vouch for your kids. You have to spend more time at the school. If your kid is having issues, go to the school. Talk to the counselor. So your kid is talking to the counselor, you should be too. Right?
Thank you, Jacquet. Tiffany, this question is for you. How can storytelling and sharing personal experiences be a powerful tool in raising awareness and reducing the stigma surrounding Black mental health issues?
Well, I think the most important thing, when we do therapy, there's a certain amount of self-disclosure that we can provide to you, but then there are some things that we don't tell you. What I really want to talk about is, why are we so quiet around mental health? I work primarily with adults, and like Jacquet, I started with children, but then I started to realize that these children are being raised by parents who don't have the mental health coping skills. And so when I have a woman sitting in my office who isn't getting along with her partner, and I do that biopsychosocial history, and I realize, you're not able to effectively communicate because when you were at home, you were told to be quiet and say nothing. And so when we really go back, and so that's why I think trauma processing is so important. When we go back and look at the way that we were raised, you mentioned about secrecy. Yeah, we have a duty to warn, and we have a duty to keep you safe. If you report that there has been sexual abuse in the home, we're going to send intervention. And I think that is a big part of the stigma in the Black community, that we say, hey, if we come in, but if we do send that intervention, and that child has some time to get the therapy, the parents are also mandated to get therapy, they're able to figure out, we should have done a better job of assessing Uncle so-and-so when he got out of prison. I should have done a better job of protecting, but we don't want to admit our faults. And some of that is naivete. Like, when you know better, do better. And so I think it's really important that as we're telling stories, that we tell the story that it's okay to tell. It's okay to tell, and for so long, systemically and historically, we have been silenced as a people. And so I great that we have Black and brown mental health professionals so that we're comfortable sharing those stories so that our children and our adults can learn healthier coping strategies.
And I think being able to share your story and not feel like you're being judged is really important. I think a lot of times, I know I was raised, you don't say what go on in
Right.
your family. So for a long time, just part of my testimony, we were homeless. So nobody knew that or saw that while I was in school. But as I grew up and started doing certain things, I realized I had trauma, personal trauma, that I had to work through things. But you walking around with all this stuff and all this baggage. So it was when I started telling my testimony and telling my story, like, hey, these are the things that I experienced. I don't look like what I've been through, but I know what it's like to be without. I know what it's like to be on the streets. That was the life that, that I had. So when I started telling my story, it was kind of like I had more people saying, like, hey, she experienced that and look at her, she's doing great, so more people will want to open up to you and talk to you more when they know that you are real, that you can be transparent. So for me, that's important. Of course, we can't really disclose that information when you're working with people in therapy, but I can relate because I've been there. So I think that's important. People want to know that they can connect, that who they're sitting in front of is somebody that's real, somebody that can relate. So that was good that you said that.
I think that one of the things that we can do in therapy, though, is the person that's in front of you, you can always connect with at a certain level. So, and this is when I deal with men and boys mostly, because when you bring your daughter to me, once I say a word, she's gonna tell me a whole entire story, right? Your son, your husband, it's a fight in there, okay? We're fighting in there trying to figure out how to get this person to at least tell how that day went, right? So the thing is, it's this pride, right? Going back to what you said, what happens in the house, we don't talk about. So after raising 4 boys, making my mistakes, and here's the thing that I think is super important that I heard someone say is that if you have more than one kid, they all don't have the same parent in you, right? Because as you grow, you make better decisions. But the pride that we have of not wanting to tell people that we're homeless, if you drive by a hotel in Clarksville, Tennessee, and the parking lot's full on a Monday, those are people who are considered to be homeless, right? So inside the school, it's a lot of people that live in hotels, right? The schools, some of them provide transportation. This is all the stuff that nobody knows, right? Because we don't really pay attention to it. But after COVID and they lifted up the whole thing about not having to pay rent, there was a lot of homeless people. They filled up the hotels. So I worked at Catholic Charities, and I seen a lot of these people come through. We paid a lot of rent, but one thing we couldn't pay for is hotel stays. But the parents never wanted to go to the school and say that they needed help, not knowing that the school, they really couldn't pay for weeks in a hotel, but they could provide some kind of resource, right? So when your kid comes to the counselor or to the therapist and they hear the word social worker, they automatically think about DCS, right? That's the first thing that goes in their mind. So sometimes what we're teaching our kids is no matter what happens to you, however bad, don't say nothing. And what does that sound like, right? That sounds like our great-grandparents, right? What our great-grandparents went through, all the abuse, right? Because things we don't talk about, incest, all this kind of stuff that goes on, we don't talk about none of that. So now I have your daughter sitting in front of me and she's acting out in school and nobody knows why. It's because we have put in their mind that they can't say anything. They ain't gonna tell me that they're hungry. They're not gonna tell me that they're struggling, they don't have clothes. They're not gonna tell me anything. So your kid walks around in the same clothes because you told them not to say anything when it's closets everywhere inside of schools across the city that have more clothes than what they need that can help your kid out. So if you need help, there's somebody that you can talk to. You just have to let your pride down.
It's okay to ask. It's okay to let somebody know, because there's a lot of resources here in Clarksville that a lot of people don't know about because they don't ask. And in the school system, there are a lot of children that are homeless that we don't know about because they don't talk about it. So they are doing things out in the community that they shouldn't do, or acting out because they're not receiving the services that, that they give. Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about the different steps, and shelter is the first one. So if a child doesn't have that, or if we don't have that, we do what we need to do to go in survival mode, right? So the good thing is that when there's resources out there, utilizing the resources and utilizing them without being shameful is okay, because everybody goes through something. We all have something, you know. So that was good, okay. Tiffany, this question is for you. In what ways has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted mental health on a global scale? And what strategies can individuals and communities employ to address these challenges?
Well, I can tell you this, during COVID-19, a lot of employers began to offer telehealth. And so I was doing telehealth, maybe 3% of my business. It's gone from 3% to 100% of my business is done completely online, where the person logs on their phone. So when we look at how COVID-19 benefited us, it definitely allowed us to have a significant increase to care. And I think also what happened with the Affordable Care Act is that mental health is now covered as a part of your health insurance. And that's huge because so many people did not want to access care because they were afraid they can't pay for it. But it's about the same cost as your regular everyday copay. I think it's important for us to recognize that, you know, even for our young adults, for our young teens, and I do work with some older teenagers, for them to be able to go in their room, listen, we have to make sure, that's why you'll see these advertisements on TV for like BetterHelp. We have to make sure that we're keeping up with the trends as mental health professionals. So a lot of times I have some older, maybe 70, I have a lady that's 70 years old. Her granddaughter taught her how to punch the button and log on for her appointment, and she is always there. And it's just wonderful. So I think it doesn't matter. If you can use FaceTime, you can access care. You don't have to take off, 2 hours to go to the office, sit there. Now people can just log on. I see so many people in their cars. Sometimes they're just sitting in the park, and I think that's wonderful.
There are also some private practices here and agencies that have grants that if you meet a certain income level status where you can receive care as well. So if you can't afford to pay for it, you can fill out paperwork, and if you meet a certain standard, you can still receive services, a 1 hour session or maybe a 6 hour session over a certain time frame. So there are, again, our resources that are available here in Clarksville, Tennessee.
And there's this one important thing, it's called EAP, right? And I'm telling you, right, therapy can be expensive. However, I say it's a free trial to therapy. EAP, if you got it, your kids are covered under it, your husband, everybody else, right? So if you at least want to try therapy, don't know if you really like it, but you don't want to pay for it, the job that you have that offers it, you have either 3 to 6 free sessions, right? So I call this this a free trial. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it, but at least try it, because one of the biggest things that I found, especially with the black men, my job offered this, and I was just seeing if it's something I would like. Okay, cool. So now it's my job to convince you that I'm not trying to come to your house and take your kids, right? I'm not trying to tell everything that's happening to you, to your wife. Like, it's one-on-one, right? What happens here stays here, right? Unless, somebody's in danger. But EAP is free for 3 to 6 sessions. If you're thinking about therapy, and COVID-19 also pushed it as well, because it was so much stress and anxiety about people. Am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen? What about housing, everything else? They needed people to talk to. EAP, the free services, like I said, I worked at Catholic Charities, and we offer free therapy. Nobody took it. I sat there for 6 months. Nobody wanted the therapy, because what they thought was, when they seen it was therapy, everybody needs therapy except me. But you're anxious, you're stressed out, hair falling out, and you're in here trying to get your bills paid. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you relax until your check goes through, okay? All right.
So you just mentioned something. I want to talk about this a little bit. So trauma looks different for everybody. Anxiety looks different for everybody. PTSD looks different for everybody. Depression looks different for everybody. What are some things that you all have seen or that you can share to bring notice to the congregation, anybody who's listening, as far as awareness of they may have some depression, they may be experiencing some anxiousness and some anxiety or some PTSD. What are some things?
I think if you're a high-functioning person, if you are a great multitasker and you can always get things done and then you can't, and then you start forgetting things. Like if you wake up in the morning, you have a routine, you get the lunch, you get the kids out the door, you remember this, and then you get to work and realize you left your own lunch. I think that's an indicator that something is going on. A lot of times what we'll find in women is that we have just put on our superwoman capes for so long that we are suffering in silence with anxiety and depression and helplessness and grief. And I really want to just spend a minute, if I could take this point of liberty, to talk about grief. I feel so blessed to be here today on the anniversary of the day that I lost my dad. And then on Wednesday, the 13th, my brother, who was 33 years old last year when he died of an aneurysm, passed. Listen, we got to get serious about our mental health. Stress does kill. For women, sometimes you can start to have digestive problems. Sometimes you can just feel like your heart is just beating fast. You're like, whoa, I had to stop and catch my breath. I don't know what's going on. That's a sign. It could be cardiac arrest or it could be anxiety. Stop ignoring the signs that are in your body. Listen to your body. I think that is so important. We are so used to just taking a Tylenol and just going through it, but really going to the doctor, getting your labs drawn, figuring out exactly what's going on to you is so important. Grief, when we talk about COVID-19 and how many of us lost family members during that time, grief and loss is real, and it shows up in the most unconventional ways. It's funny that you would have Fiji water here. I love Fiji water. And I had a friend that always gave me Fiji water, had a full-down meltdown in Publix, where the little guy was like, ma'am, is there something I can do with you? No, just remembering just that Fiji water brought on such a strong memory. So I think it's really important that we don't ignore the signs of our body, that we really start to get familiar, that if you start forgetting things that you normally forget, if you find that you can't get out the bed, or you're crying, or you're snappy and you're more irritated and it's more than just your normal sassiness, that is an indicator that something is going on, and you need to stop and sit down and learn how to breathe. These are just coping strategies, just sitting down and learning how to breathe. I think it's important that you bookend your day, that you start your day. You don't just let it organically unfold, but you get up and you set your intentions for the day, whether that's prayer, reading a scripture, meditating, just taking a moment. Those are very important coping skills, because if you set your intention in the day, in the morning, you're not hollering at the child before they walk out the door.
Amen.
You are setting, and you set your intention, now your children, it's a trickle-down effect. I tell women in particular that I work with, girl, you are the sun. And when you are shining brightly, everybody feels your warmth. But sometimes you have tornadic winds around you. Sometimes you are the rain. Sometimes your words can be so sharp, they're like lightning bolts. I think that's important to acknowledge. And I think it's important for us to become self-aware.
And for men, it's the anger, the short temper, right? That's one of the things that we forget about. When we think about depression, we think about not being able to get out of bed, not be able to shower, just feeling sad, wanting to die, all this other stuff. But sometimes, for men, the way that it comes out is anger. Stuff that you wouldn't even be irritated about normally, now it just gets on your nerves. You're just looking at the kid, wishing he would, right? So, when we think about it, and this goes back to slavery and everything else and how it goes down, all our life we had to fight. If you remember, if you talk to the men here, if you remember when you was a kid, I don't know where you grew up at, but when you think about it, everybody already had eyes on you. It was already this expectation of what you should be. If you made a mistake, you was a nobody, right? I don't know if they say it to the kids now, but in my school, my teachers, they would tell us, y'all ain't going to be nothing. Right? So this is what we're hearing, and now we're fighting, trying to be opposite of what we've been told we're going to be our whole entire lives. So as we're fighting, pressure is amounting, and we're becoming depressed. So now we're taking it out on the people that surround us, our wives, our husbands, our kids, everybody is getting a dose of my anger. And then we go to work, and we turn out to be what every black man dreads, the angry black guy. Right? We do not want to be the angry black guy. So we have to take care of our own mental health. When you realize the same way, if your wife is snappy at you, you're like, I don't know what's going on with her today. But if she's snappy all week long, right, I don't know, maybe something's going on with her. You might want to ask if she's okay. Women have to do the same thing. Your husband's short, he's snapping at the kids over like little dumb stuff that, he normally would just ignore. Ask him if he's okay. Husbands don't come see me because they love therapy. They come see me because either they overreacted or their wife said, hey, if you don't get help, I'm leaving. Right?
Yeah.
So if you feel yourself getting snappy, short, you're angry all the time, we're black, high blood pressure is our thing, right? If your blood pressure been high for so long and you ain't eating pork and you just angry all the time, you might need therapy, right? And it's okay. When you come see me or you go see any mental health professional, and here's another thing that I want to point out. It is not a lot of black men in therapy, right? So it's going to be long wait lists. However, if you think that you're not feeling too well, get on somebody's wait list. If you have to go see somebody else until a black provider is available, that's perfectly fine. But go get help from somewhere. Again, EAP is a wonderful thing. If you got it, use it. Don't wait until your kids are afraid of you. I had to talk to myself first. I used to walk in the house and everybody's laughing and joking, but as soon as I come through the door, everybody's scattered. Nobody's laughing. And it's kind of like, what's wrong with y'all? And I'm thinking that they doing something they ain't got no business doing, right? No, when I come home, I change the whole energy. The whole house changed when I walked in. That's not what I need. Also, that's not being a good partner, right? You could be a husband, but suck as a partner, right? So if you're feeling short, you're angry all the time, and you kind of don't know why, it might be a little bit of depression. And even if it's not, and you can't explain why, go see somebody. Right?
I have two more questions, and then I'm allow the congregation to ask questions. So, Tiffany, this question is for you. What role can community organizations, churches, and support networks play in promoting mental health and providing resources for individuals?
I think this is awesome what we're doing today, just inviting mental health professionals out so that we can put a name with a face. Many of you don't know that I've been here in Clarksville for 5 years, right there off of Dunbar Cave Road. And so I think it's important. That's what we can do. We can start normalizing mental health, making sure that any organization that you are affiliated, whether that's a fraternity, sorority, a nonprofit, making sure that you're asking the question, hey, what are we doing to engage people in their mental health? So I think that's another important component, is that we just have to get out here. We have to continue to have those health fairs and talk to people about their benefits. And really, we have to kind of coach and mentor.
And I think one of the biggest things is realizing that if you have insurance, most of the time therapy is free. I don't know how to say free more than free, right? If it was a buy one, get one free, you'll go get it. Even if it was $200, you buy one, get one free. However, you got to live to be able to use those things, right? So most of the time, therapy is either cheap or free to you. And we have to go use it. We can put signs up everywhere. Free, I don't know how many times I've had to use the word free trying to get people to use the services in Catholic charities. They would come in the building, they would go fill out all the paperwork to get their bills paid, and it's kind of like, well, it's gonna take an hour for her to process your paperwork. Why don't we go over here and talk? It's free. But because it's something that they're uncomfortable with, they don't want to use it. So we can put all the signs up that we want to, but you have to use it. Don't be afraid to use the services. Your church put this on for you to get a better understanding of your mental health.
Amen.
And we're telling you that it's available, but it doesn't work if you don't use it.
It's free, y'all.
And I think you have to realize too that you have employers like, I don't know if anybody works at Starbucks, but they get 20 free sessions.
Oh, wow.
Walmart now gets 12 sessions. State of Tennessee employees get 6 sessions, and that's anybody that works for, even if you work for a small business and they get their health insurance through the state of Tennessee. So I think that it's really about you all just reaching out to us. Let us call, let our front office people do an evaluation to find out what your costs are. I know a lot of times for me, I have a certain percentage of my caseload that I just waive completely. Because I think it's important. I think it's important to give back. I think it's important to make sure. And then we have networks. You know, if I can't take you, if I feel like you're going to be better served, like he was saying, there's some waiting lists. Hey, come on in and see me. Let me teach you some basic coping strategies, some basic communication skills. And then when JK is available, you can go over to him and work specifically on that anger management. Or he may have someone that he's going to send my way because he knows they need trauma processing. So I think it's really important that you all just access those resources. Just ask for help. And something I wanted to piggyback on earlier when you said you walk in and you're looking at them like, what's wrong with you? I think we have to start asking our partners that question. I think we have to say, hey, I noticed you were a little bit irritated with the kids today. Is everything okay? I think historically we're not checking in with one another. Even like your sisters that you're on committees with here at the church. If you notice that sister so-and-so got a whole lot to say and she's kind of angry and irritated, after the meeting, ask her, are you okay? I noticed you were a little edgy today. Is there anything that I can do to help? Is everything going all right at home? Asking our children, how was your day? I asked my daughter, how do you feel? She's like, I'm good. No, I need a feeling word. Like an emoji. Pick an emoji in your phone and show me what you're feeling like. I think that's really important that we use different language and that we ourselves start to make sure that we're identifying how we feel, because if we don't, then we start to self-soothe, right? That's when addiction comes in. Self-soothing, that's when pornography comes in. Self-soothing. It's really important.
And so for your kids that's in high school, middle school, pretty sure y'all got problems with vapes, right? All this other stuff. Pretend like you don't, but it's there, right? So, and then you're wondering why most of the kids that I talk to that fall into this category, they're anxious. They don't know how to fit in school, right? So they go fit in the bathroom is what I call it.
So what does vaping do? What does vaping do?
You know, it's kids in here, but y'all can imagine that it comes in different forms, you know, and if you don't know, might want to talk to your teenager. It's a good conversation to have to figure out what's going on, right? And one of the things is that they turn to drugs and all these other things because they're trying to cope with anxiety, because this is what the songs say, this is what their friends say. But when you think about it, I'm super anxious, then I go smoke weed, right? Well, what does weed do, right? It makes you paranoid. Doesn't make sense. However, in our minds and in our teenage minds, certain things it makes me feel better, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? It goes back to marriage. Ask if your partner's okay. Well, he's coming home every day, she's coming home every day, everything must be good. No, right? Y'all got this written paper that says you gotta come home every day, right? And if you're not, this paper's gonna get tore up, right? So you got this contract. So
You gotta come home every day, right?
you have to really think about it. When you are feeling a certain kind of way, these services are free. Even EAP is not just for the individual. It could be marriage, right? It could be it's all there. You just have to use it. And I don't know, like, you probably can done way more than I have, but I have said, hey, listen, if you're struggling, don't even worry about it. I don't want to put more of a burden on you. Just have your kid come every 2 weeks and I'll see him for free. Like, I don't know how much more we can do as professionals to try to help if you're not willing to use it. Because I work for Walmart as a contract, and most of the people that I see are white. They get to choose who they pick. It's not like I get a random name thrown out there. They go down this list and they choose who they want to see. So when you're using the services, you get to choose who you want to see. But if you don't ask for it, you don't get it.
Free services, free resources is what I'm hearing, that there's a lot of networking that's going around. And we're all considered providers, so we'll all be licensed under different things. So if you choose one of us and we don't take your insurance, there are a lot of other therapists and therapy services in the community that you can go and see as well. I have one more question, and I'm going to let the audience, for time purposes. Suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation is something that I've been seeing since I've been doing therapy with the clients that I've been working with. We asked those questions in the beginning when we were doing the intake process. You have a lot of people that say that they had suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation or thoughts, like recently before they come into services. What are some ways that we as individuals, when we're around our family or our friends, what are some things that we can do to notice or help bring awareness so that we know if somebody say, what am I trying to say? You know how kids may say, oh, I just want to go and kill myself. We kind of blow that off, or we kind of ignore that, oh, he's just joking or she's just joking, but then they go out later on and it's happening. What are some things that you can share that someone can notice and not ignore it, is what I'm trying to get to.
I think it's important to really look at how they're behaving. If their behavior, if this is a child that loves sports, they want to go to all the football games, all the basketball games, and then all of a sudden you see that change in behavior where they don't want to do anything, that's an indicator. I think that's why we have to start being real with questions, how do you feel? And if a child ever is courageous enough to tell you, I want to kill myself, I think that's a statement that you take very seriously. And I don't think that you take it seriously in that, oh, I gotta definitely get him to the hospital. The first thing that I do is I create a safety plan. There's an app on our phone for everything called Safety Plan, and it can help walk you through the steps of helping someone create a safety plan. I think it's also important for men and women to recognize when your feelings, when you start to feel really, really sad, really, really depressed, when you start to feel hopeless, really stopping to think, I think that's important.
And I think one of the biggest things, this is for the parents, right? When your kids become teenagers, they spend all this time in the room, right? Yes, some of it is normal, some of it is not, right? So again, I think I like what she said. When you ask your kids how they feel or how they're doing, you want a feeling word, because we all know that I'm good can mean 1,000 different things, right? And for most men, that means I'm not all right, I'm not good, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna handle it anyway, right? But back to the kids, they like to spend a lot of time in their room. And I really think that kids do need privacy and space to grow. However, they don't need from I got at home at 4 and I'm in there to 10 type privacy, right? You need to check on your kids, right? Because the biggest thing that I saw is that when most of the kids come in, they talk about suicide and things like this. But before I said it, we did this program when I worked for ACS earlier this year. And we went to the school and we talked about all these different things. We were talking about teenage abuse, domestic violence amongst teens. But most of the questions were about suicide. Not so much about the domestic violence piece. That was fun and nice and they liked that. But they wanted to know about suicide because they're trying to figure out about themselves. I can't fit in. Maybe this world is better without me because I don't have a place. But we sometimes look past that because they're emotional. She's like 15, so she's just going through emotions. He's 16, he don't want to be bothered with nobody. You know how 16-year-olds are. Yes, until we find that bottle empty, right? We realize that they're using drugs in school, right? And we found them halfway dead. Right? I worked in Cumberland Hall, I worked in some of these different facilities, and I realized that, and I had one particular kid, and it really sticks out, that her objective, her goal was to run out in traffic. Now, how is anybody supposed to know that this girl would just dart out in traffic one day? Nobody knows that. But when you talk to her, you realize that, yes, her parents asked her if she was okay. She said, yeah, I'm doing good. But she stayed in the room all the time. She didn't really talk. and she was all bubbly at first. So if you see a shift in your kids' behavior, you're there all the time with your kids. Don't let the excuse that they're 16, they're maturing, they don't want to be bothering nobody, their attitude. Don't let that be an excuse to not check on their mental health.
And we now have the 988, just like you dial 911 for a emergency. 988 is the new 3-digit number for the National Suicide Hotline, 988. So that's an important resource. You can call that if you notice some changes in your child and you need some information. 988 is also textable. I think it's really important that we educate the community on the 988 hotline, suicide prevention hotline.
And keep your medicine and your guns put up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We cause our kids addictions, right? We cause all these things. We give them access. Kids run around in school with guns and things like that. It's because they have access to them. Yes, we want to teach our kids how to use guns, all this stuff, and they know where the gun is in case something happened, but your emotional 16-year-old does not need to know how, or what, not how to use a gun, but where the gun is. Because if something goes on and they're being bullied, right, and they feel like the only thing they have to do is go drill, spin the block, right, you don't want them to know where your gun is, right? Keep your gun and your medications up. Because if they're feeling a certain kind of way, they want to hurt themselves or somebody else, right, they have to come talk to you. Don't give them free access to go hurt themselves or someone else.
Amen. So 988 is the number that number can be used for adults, correct? Anybody? It's a new crisis number. So 911, we all know that number, what? 9? Amen. All right. Put it in your cell phones. You can text it. You can call it, as it was mentioned, if you are or you know anybody who's in need of crisis services. I want to take a few minutes, because I know with time, to let the audience ask questions. Anybody have a question?
You talk about the children when they stay in their rooms and they don't want to, and you ask them, are they good? And they keep saying good. You can't get through to them. What do you do then when you try to talk to them? They say they're good, and you try and they're shut down on you. How can you get through to them?
So this is what I've noticed. The parents call me and they're like, well, here's my 16-year-old or my 15-year-old. When they hit 16, things are a little bit difficult, right? But before 16, you can sign your kids up for therapy, right? And most of the time, what I tell them, and I suggest parents to say the same thing, is, listen, we ain't got to go deep into what's going on, right? But just tell me a little bit about how you're feeling. But you can't ask that question and then be judging, because what they tell you might not be what you want to hear, right? Sometimes you are being a horrible parent at that time, right? And you need to change. I raised 4 boys, right? And they all were different. And I realized that I had my first kid when I was 16, right? 16-year-old Jacque is not the same as 37-year-old, right? So I was not a very good parent at 16 years old, right? But by the time I realized and got to my last one, now when he talks, I sit there and listen. My first one didn't really get that luxury, right? I barely know what I was doing, right? So he didn't get that luxury. So when your kids are talking to you, you have to listen. The little words that they say, if it don't sound right, or they be like whatever, or what kind of music are they listening to, right? If they say something to you in conversation, it's not always when, hey, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. But what did they say like 2 hours before that? Or when you heard them talking, what were they talking about? That's the time to interject and have that conversation.
And then also, I think as parents, we have to take back our parental rights. Like, so often we're asking kids, are you good? Just like you sign them up to go to the doctor to get that annual physical, sign them up for an annual mental health check-in appointment. Same thing. Mine, when you come in, you put that cell phone down and you're not getting it back until we have a conversation. How was your day? Who was bad in class today? You know, don't always make it about them. Now, which of your teachers upset you today? Really, how did you respond to that? No, she didn't. Do I need to go up there and see Mr. Hurley? Like, I think, like, we just give them these phones, and I think we got to take our power back. You know, start having cell phone contracts, and you can have that. I have one that's 22. Yes, I will cut your phone off, and you will not be able to Snapchat, FaceTime nobody while you're in college. No, ma'am. Yeah, when I call you, answer the phone. So I think it's really important for you as parents to make sure that they're earning that privilege to have that phone. Like, yeah, I'm with him, I think they should have privacy, but at the same time, just like you're demanding privacy, I'm demanding family interaction time. It's really important.
But what if they just shut down and you just cannot get through to them? How do you do that? Because, you know,
And then that's the point to where I say, call somebody.
Right.
Because when I talk to your 16-year-old, 17-year-old, whatever, however old they are when I call, and I talk to you first and I talk to them, I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, if you don't want to talk about nothing, you don't have to, but your mom really wants you to do therapy. So how about we just do this for, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks just to see how it goes. And if you don't like it, we don't have to do it anymore, right? The thing is half the time, it's just like the gym, right? Half the battle is getting there, right? Once you're there, you're there. So we're just trying to get them to have a conversation. It's not just about business. Yeah, we want to make money doing therapy, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help if your kid comes sees me and they never change.
So when you call and make the connection, one of the questions that will be asked is, what does that shutting down look like? Because when you say shut down, it could look like a lot of different things. There's being in the room, wanting to be isolated outside somewhere. If you're trying to have a conversation, like no talking at all. So we'll ask specific questions to get a little bit more information so that we can know how to approach the situation, especially when you're dealing with young people, because you know there can be some resistance there. That was a good question, though. Any other questions?
Am I allowed to answer that question right there?
Okay, go ahead.
So, you know, I'm 16 years old. I'm Jonathan. Everybody knows me. I'm 16 years old. You know, there's a lot of things that in the school, you know, there's a lot of things going on, you know, like, of course, drugs and things like that, trying to fit in, you know. And I'm a 16-year-old boy. I've been through a lot. I've been through grief. I've been through trauma. I've been through a whole bunch of stuff. I know how I shut down sometimes as well. You know, recently, now, I'm working on my mental health. You know, I've been losing friends back to back, family members back to back. You know, I'm still struggling with, you know, not having a father in the home. So it's kind of hard for me to open up because as a young black man in America, it's hard to express how I feel sometimes because I know that I don't want to look misjudged or be in that stereotype, oh, you know, what the black boy, whatever, when they were talking about that earlier. You know, what my mom likes to do, I'm being transparent, but she likes to interrogate me. Like, keep going at your child. Keep asking that question. Keep asking them, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, you know, start asking more questions like that. Because, you know, I'm the same way. I'm going to be like, how's your day? It was straight. Just another day, another paper. You know, that's how I am. I know I'm going to say I'm good, but deep down, I know I'm dealing with a lot. I know I can't express how I am. I can't do this, I can't do that because we be in that stereotype. Men are strong. Men do this, men are that. Men are supposed to be strong. They're supposed to be the household, the strong foot of the house, you know. But sometimes, deep down, I'm like, man, what do I do? Like, why am I feeling this way? Because I could definitely see a difference. You can definitely see a difference in your kid because, you know, you're a black parent. You can definitely see it. So interrogate them. That's all I gotta say.
And then these 16-year-old boys, right, turn into 36-year-old men. And they have the same mentality. When a 36 or 55-year-old man comes to therapy, it's the same. It all sounds the same because they don't want to show that they're having issues.
How do you help your child deal with grief and depression from family and friends? From the loss of family and friends?
So I think my kid's first loss, his friend was playing with a gun on Snapchat and ended up killing himself. And that was the first time that I had to deal with it. And just like any other parent, I was kind of lost, right? Because I was in mental health, but like I wasn't really educated in grief because that's not what I was focusing on. And one of the things is allowing them to have a space to talk. If they want to, it's the same, y'all done had bad boyfriends and bad husbands, and y'all still talk about it 20 years later, right? If this kid needs to talk about a loss or something that they're feeling, allow them the space to talk, right? If you only have 30 minutes, listen to them for that 30 minutes. But don't cut them off. Don't act like you don't have time. That is one of the things that I did with some of my kids is I didn't give them the space to talk. I kind of just said, hey, I got 5 minutes, that's all you got. Well, 5 minutes is not enough, right? So allow your kid time to talk about whatever's bothering them as long as they need to. If it's a couple of hours or not, even if you have to break it up, allow them the time to talk. Because I'm gonna tell you who knows about everything they're going through, right? Their best friend at school who's really not their best friend, right? And social media. They know everything that's going on with your kid. Allow them the time to talk.
And I also think it's important that as we experience loss, that we educate our children along the way with whatever our memorial rituals are, like going to a funeral, not just taking a child who's never lost someone to a funeral, but explaining that this is a time for us to remember grandma, this is a time for us to, what is your favorite memory? So I think really honoring those rituals that we already have in place to make sure that they're educated about it. And then if they do want to talk, let them talk, let them draw, let them light a candle. And most importantly, allow them to see you grieve. Because so often in loss, like I said, especially us black women, we are so busy planning these funerals, getting the repast together, making sure everybody's outfit is coordinated, and then about a month later, we cannot get out the bed. And so I think it's really important that you, when they ask you, Mommy, what's wrong with you? I'm sad. I miss Uncle Stanley. I'm sad. And just allowing them to say, do you miss him? What's your favorite memory? Sometimes we look at pictures. So I think just creating that safe space for our children and normalize healthy grieving.
So 2 more questions here, and then Papa got a question. Okay. What can you do if you notice a friend, coworker, or family member having, you believe that they have a mental health problem, but they won't acknowledge it? It's a 2-part question. And also from a healthcare standpoint, what do you think is the reason why the mental health issues are so high in Montgomery County?
So the answer to the first part is, it's just like anything. You can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. So sometimes it's just a fight, and tell them how crazy they are doesn't really motivate them to go, right? Because what they're afraid of is going to see somebody, and in their mind, because some doctors are that way, right? They're doctors, they not mental health professionals, right? So they don't know how to explain what's going on with them. So encourage them to go see someone, and then give them a resource, right? Print off a bunch of names and say, hey, here's this list. That's the most that some of us can do. Because if they call me and they say, well, I'm thinking about therapy, but I'm not sure if I really want it or not. Well, what are you looking for? Well, I would like to see a woman. Well, I can give them a list of women to see, but I cannot make them call, right? And in Montgomery County, it's no different than anywhere else. The biggest difference is you know the people that's around you. You can look at them and see that they need issues. They have issues, but they don't want to get help. And big thing is, if you're prescribed medicine, take your medicine. Because if you don't take it, you know what the repercussions look like. Your family, your friends, it causes this division, right? It's okay to take your medicine. God wouldn't have put them here to be able to prescribe you medicine if you didn't need it. But also the biggest part of it is you're not going to go to hell if you take your medicine, right? But what will happen is that you don't take your medicine and you do something that you can never recover from.
And if it's not the right doses, it's okay to go back to the doctor and say, hey, this is making me feel a certain type of way. Because if you want to be functional at work and you want to be functional every day, sometimes the higher the dosage, sometimes it changes us because of the side effects. So it's okay to tell the doctor, hey, this is too high, can we try something else? Either a lower dosage or another type of medication.
Hi, I'm not the 16-year-old man. I am 66 and soon to be 67 in less than a week. And here's my concern, is that I heard a lot about free today, about free stuff that's out there now. But when I went to seek counseling, the first thing they asked me was, what is your insurance? They didn't recommend any resources, didn't send me anywhere else. And fortunately, I found out about EAP. I think therapy is one of the greatest things that has happened. And you don't have to be 15 and 16. When you find out that therapy is good, I encourage you to run to it. One of the choices that I had was do I want a black therapist, a white therapist, a male or female therapist? So the choice was mine. And when I went to telehealth and the person looked like me, I felt freer to talk to him, because I believe at 66, this young kid could better understand what I was dealing with. But how do we get that out there about their free resources? How do we help people to understand? You may not have insurance, or you may not know about your insurance, but how do we get those resources out there that therapy is possible for anybody?
I think, I'm so sorry that you had that experience, but most providers, at least the colleagues that I work with, we definitely are making sure that we're doing some education, and we are definitely connected with our mental health organizations like Centerstone and Mental Health Co-op, and like he was saying earlier, Catholic Charities. We're definitely connected with them. So I would say, don't give up. Utilizing websites like Psychology Today oftentimes will help you be able to put a name with a face. And I also wanted to say, those of you that may be in leadership or higher profile positions, when we're licensed, I'm not just licensed to see people in Clarksville. Like a lot of my clients, 50% of my clients don't even live in this area. I have clients from Memphis, Chattanooga, everywhere. So don't let regional, like he said, seeing somebody in Publix, not wanting to see your therapist there. I think that's been a benefit of telehealth, is that I'll have people who may be the director of HR with some major company, and they're out of Memphis, and they want to see me because I'm out of Clarksville. Like, I think it's important for you to recognize that you don't have to just limit yourself to Clarksville providers unless you only want to be seen in person.
And then you can't forget that no matter what it is, it's a business. So what insurance you have does matter. But if you call a place and they ask you, if you call me, I'm gonna ask you, what insurance you have? Because I only take 2, right? And if I don't take those 2 and you can't pay for it, I'm gonna find you somewhere else. But you're not gonna go to Walmart and try to get a deal, right? Because they're not gonna give you one. They're not gonna adjust their price. They're not gonna do anything, right? So when I send you to somebody else, I'm sending you to somebody who either takes your insurance or offers that service to you for free, right? But I think the biggest thing is that you have to call around. You have to call around. You will spend hours inside of stores looking for a black dress under $15, right? You can spend a little bit of time calling around, asking who can offer you, if you only have $50 and that's all you got to get therapy once a week. Somebody out there takes that $50. But because you're willing to pay and you're trying to pay, somebody's gonna take you. If you don't have any money, we're gonna find you. Mental Health Co-op, like you said, Centerstone, it's all these places that will help you. I will tell you the same exact thing I would tell anybody else. If you wanna see a black provider, and this goes for the medication as well, because some of their wait list was like 3 or 4 months out to see a psychiatrist. Go see somebody who does not look like you because you need help, okay? And put your name on the wait list for somebody that you would prefer to see. And when they have an opening, they will call you, right? But whenever people see mental health, they run from mental health. So it's not that it's not out there. I could put free mental health services, but they see mental health, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And you turn the other way. So that's kind of the issue that we have when trying to offer these services, is that you gotta want them. And when we send you places and you call and all they care about, well, I can't see you, we don't take the insurance, we don't offer free services, and they don't give anything else and they hang up, call the next person on the line. And the biggest thing, how many military do we have in here, right? You do not need a referral to see a mental health provider, right? TRICARE will pay for, I think it used to be up to 12, but now it's unlimited, right? They will pay for you and your family member to see someone. Not if you're active duty, you gotta go the whole route. But your family members, they can go to anybody who accepts TRICARE. They do not need a referral, right?
And we're all on psychologytoday.com, so you can look for any therapist anywhere, any state, to find to find a therapist that fits your needs. It shares our backgrounds. It shares what our area of discipline is. It shares the different types of insurance that we have. It shares who we work for, if we're private practice, or if we're working for another agency. So psychologytoday.com is a great resource for everybody to look at.
And if you are willing to do telehealth, right, don't put Clarksville in there. Just put Tennessee. You can choose black, female, black, male, however you want to do it. Just put Tennessee. Don't put Clarksville because it may be limited, but it's other black providers across Tennessee that you can see.
One question, and Pastor T.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. I didn't agree with homeboy about the medication thing because I've been taking them for a while. These doctors out here will give you medication just to get you out here. It's a Band-Aid. You need to do some research because I came off about 7 pills. I was being sick for many years because the doctor was giving me these pills. And I'm a veteran, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes down to that because I came off a lot of pills. But if you, as a person, 16, 17, whatever, parents need to look over that medication because all the medication give you is not good. I don't care what you say because like I said, I ain't tell my why. They took me off a lot of medication because they was killing me. And I knew this, and I keep going to the doctor, and I'm a veteran. And I just told them I can't take the medication. There's a couple of medications that black people shouldn't take anyhow. Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all figure it out. When I ain't gonna tell you, but it's on the market. They tell you every day they give you cancer. So I'm gonna let y'all know right now. Check your medication.
Amen.
So here's my viewpoint, right? Is medicine good for everybody? No, it's not. However, the black community, because of trauma, some black, I'm not gonna say a lot, it is a percentage of black people that struggle with schizophrenia, right? And they don't take medicine.
Bipolar too.
Bipolar, those two right there are the biggest ones where when they feel better, they stop taking their medicine, but it affects everybody else around them, right? It affects their jobs. We see them walking up and down the streets all the time, right? So I'm not saying, right, that just whatever your doctor say, go do it. What I'm saying is, of course, do your research, ask them questions, right? But if you know that your depression is to a place to where you cannot function, right, and it's either die or go to the doctor, right? If that medication doesn't work for you, talk to your doctor about it. Again, like I said, we feel more comfortable working with somebody who looks like us. If that's the case, fine. But if you need medication today, go see somebody and put your name on the wait list. Because it's other black providers out there, there's black psychiatrists, that wait list may be long, but if you need help right now, are you willing to wait 6 months, or are you gonna go see somebody right now?
And I think medication management is part of a comprehensive treatment plan. So, whenever I have someone, I can assess in about 4 sessions whether or not medication should be something that we look at. There are definitely behavioral components. You can heal without it, but I think it really is important for you to look at using every tool that we have available to help you be able to live well and have a healthier mental health state of mind.
Amen. Pastor T.
Yes, so we have a community that's connected with us virtually, and I want to make sure that we honor them as well. Brother Lowe, on our virtual space asked, essentially, what are the effects of bullying on mental health, and how can we address it in schools?
So when I was working inside the school, and I only worked in school for a little bit, however, I got teenagers. So again, it goes back to, so put y'all in on the loop, kids probably ain't gonna tell you this, but they have these Facebook pages where they create about certain schools, right? And they bully kids on there. And the effects of it is the depression, the anxiety, the not wanting to go to school, right? And if you think about the last couple of things that you heard about children and suicide, it all revolved bullying, right? So we can't protect our kids from everything, but bullying has a big effect on how your kid functions. If your kid don't want to go to school and then they want to spend all their time in their room, they're trying to figure themselves out, and we have to continuously encourage our kids. If you have to be your kid's biggest cheerleader, because when they go out into this world, right? They have to remember those things that you said, but they spend most of their time in school, and who has the biggest impact? So we have to be our kids' biggest cheerleader and push, because that depression and anxiety that comes from bullying is real. And they are telling them, go kill yourself. Right? Maybe this world is better without me. It's what these kids who are being bullied, that's where their mind goes to. But this world needs them. So we have to continue to cheer and talk to our kids.
And I think it's also important for us as parents not to be bullies. I think it's really important for us to not be bullies. Because when we bully them, and sometimes that sounds like, girl, go in there and get in there and sit down. You keep coming in here, what's wrong with you? When we're not like making that effort to build them up, instead of saying go, 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 like come on in here, what's wrong? Like I said, my daughter say, it's now a good time. Every day, all day long is a good time. I have time for you. I'm never too busy helping other people that I don't have time for you. I think that we have to look at the language that we're using in our own homes. Like we can't hold a whole school system accountable to make sure that our children have great mental health when you're not doing it at home. Are you affirming? Do you wake up every day and tell your child what's amazing about them and how proud you are of them and how beautiful that lipstick looks near their face? Like I think it's really important when we talk about bullying, we really have to look at what are you role modeling at home? What language are you using? We can't expect for people, I always tell my daughters, don't treat people outside the house better than you treat people inside the house. But I role model that, and I think that is so important that accountability starts first at home.
And let those boys cry, all right? Let them cry, because then they go into these relationships where they don't have any emotional intelligence, because I can't cry, I can't look weak, right? We ain't on the slave yard no more, right? We're not stuck in factories as the only job we can have, right? We have to have some kind of compassion and be able to communicate. But if I'm tough, I don't want to communicate because I might say the wrong thing.
You can. I want to thank everybody for joining us for Family and Friends Day. Flip the script.
Hallelujah.